enter this world not armored, but open, not defended, but porous. The soul, newly born into the architecture of time, does not come with walls, it comes with memory. And that memory, though buried deep beneath layers of skin, identity and culture is not just yours, it is ancestral, it is archetypal, it is collective. To be sensitive is not to be broken. It is to be tuned to something beneath the surface, tuned to the whisper of another's pain, tuned to the fracture in a voice, tuned to the truth in silence. But the tragedy of sensitivity in a world obsessed with noise is that it feels like a flaw. You were not born weak. You were born receptive. And this receptivity, this sacred permeability, this raw spiritual membrane, it absorbs not only beauty but betrayal, not only music but manipulation. And so the sensitive suffer, not because they lack strength, but because they lack artifice. In every myth, the hero must descend, and in every descent there is a wound, and in every wound there is a doorway. But the sensitive, unlike the armored, begin already wounded, not by trauma per se, but by the intensity of feeling. It is not the events of life that first pierce them, it is the very awareness of life itself. They are not just touched by suffering, they embody it. They do not just witness injustice, they carry it in their bloodstream. They do not just observe joy, they dissolve in it. This is not sentimentality. It is not indulgence. It is not fragility. It is the expression of a soul still too connected to the original matrix, the Great Mother, that unbroken unity where self and other are still one. But the world does not understand this. And so it punishes sensitivity. It calls it weakness. It calls it immaturity. It calls it being too much. But what it truly fears is its reflection in the sensitive. For the sensitive reflect what others suppress. They reveal what the armored have buried. They awaken what has been anesthetized. And so the world, unable to tolerate the mirror, shames the mirror holder. This is why the sensitive become targets, because their very existence reveals the falsity in others. They do not need to speak a word. Their presence alone stirs the shadow in those around them. And when the shadow is stirred in one who is not ready to face it, it retaliates, not out of evil, but out of fear. The sensitive must then make a choice. Do I dim? Do I detach? Do I withdraw into the illusion of self-protection? But here lies the paradox. The sensitive cannot fully armor. They can try. They can mimic the strategies of the invulnerable. They can build walls. They can silence their intuition. They can numb themselves through excess or retreat. But these are not sustainable. The soul revolts. It demands authenticity. And so, over time, the armor becomes unbearable. It is not made for them. You see, the reason sensitive people get hurt is not because they are careless. It is because their love is unfiltered. It flows like a spring from the unconscious. It carries with it The old waters of the soul, the kind that know no transaction, no defense, no condition. And when such a love meets a world where love has become a currency of control, it blurs. This is the great tragedy, but also the great calling. For if you, the sensitive one, remain unarmored and yet do not dissolve, you become something else entirely. You become a mirror that does not crack. You become a channel that does not drown. You become not a victim of your empathy, but an embodiment of its sacred purpose. But to reach this stage requires initiation, and this initiation is brutal. There's a dream I once recorded in my early work. A patient dreamed she was in a vast cathedral made of glass. The walls shimmered with color, like stained fragments of a forgotten memory. But the more she moved, the more the walls cracked. Her very presence seemed to threaten the fragile beauty of the place. In panic, she tried to stop herself, to freeze, to disappear, but the walls cracked anyway. And then the glass cut her. She bled, and the blood spilled onto the floor, awakening a fire beneath the cathedral. When she awoke, she wept. This dream, to me, was the soul's truth for the sensitive. You are the glass cathedral. You are the fire beneath. And you are the one who bleeds. The architecture of your psyche is luminous, but it is also delicate. You were not designed for numbness. You were designed for attunement. But in a world that cannot hold, that you crack. And when you crack, you awaken something deeper, the fire, the transformation, the alchemy. So what is the armor? The armor is the persona, the mask, the construct we create to navigate a society that fears depth. It is not inherently evil, it is necessary. But when we mistake the persona for the self, we begin to die slowly, quietly, but deeply. The sensitive, more than anyone, feel this death, for they know when they are lying to themselves. They feel when their smile is not truth. They sense the tension between the false self and the soul. This creates inner war, a war between survival and authenticity, between blending in and breaking open, between being safe and being seen. And it is here that the wound becomes sacred. Do not think for a moment that your pain is purposeless. It is not. It is a map. The pain of being sensitive in a desensitized world is the very furnace in which your soul is reforged. But only if you enter it, only if you stop running, only if you stop blaming your sensitivity and begin listening to it. The path is not to erase the pain, but to read it. The wound speaks in dreams, in symbols, in repeated patterns, in the faces that trigger you, in the lovers who leave, in the friends who betray, in the silence after abandonment. These are not punishments. They are oracles. There is a reason the same types of people appear in your life. A reason you feel too much around them. A reason you question your worth in their presence. It is not because they are more real than you. It is because they echo an ancient pattern within you, a pattern not created by you, but inherited The sensitive often carry the family's forgotten pain, the ancestral grief, the generational silence. They become the living altar for what no one else could express. This is why your love is so large. It holds more than your own heart. It holds the hearts of those who never learned how to feel. But do not martyr yourself. That is not your destiny. You are not here to bleed forever. You are here to awaken, to see that your pain was never weakness, but a torch, and that torch must be carried, not hidden, but to carry it, you must first find it, and to find it, you must go into the dark. This darkness is not evil. It is the unconscious. It is the cave of the self, the place where the false dies and the truth is reborn. You will resist it. You will distract yourself with roles, with busyness, with validation, but the darkness waits, not as punishment, but as invitation. When you finally sit with your pain, not analyze it, not escape it, but sit with it, it begins to speak. It shows you where the child still cries, where the lover still longs, where the soul still waits, and in that sacred encounter, something shifts. You stop blaming the world. You stop blaming yourself. You begin to see this sensitivity was never meant to make you small. It was meant to make you sacred. But sacredness is not safety. It is power. And power without understanding becomes poison. You must understand your gift. You must know what it means to feel so much. You must learn to hold without absorbing, to sense without suffering, to love without losing yourself. This is not something society will teach you. It will teach you the opposite, that to feel is to fall, that to care is to crumble, that to be vulnerable is to invite destruction. But I tell you, to be truly sensitive and to remain standing is the mark of the awakened. You are not meant to walk this path alone, for the archetype of the wounded healer lives in you. And the wounded healer, once awakened, draws others not through perfection, but through presence. You see, others feel safe with the sensitive, not because you save them, but because you see them. And to be seen, truly seen, is the closest most people will come to divinity in this life. But before you can see others, you must see yourself, not the mask, not the performance, not the adaptation, but the raw, radiant, terrifying truth of your being. You must see where you began to dim. When the world first told you you were too much, when love first betrayed you, when friendship became a battlefield, when you chose silence over expression, these moments were not your fall. They were your formation. And now it is time to remember. When you begin to remember, truly remember, you do not just recall events, you recover your essence. You call back the parts of yourself exiled by shame. You retrieve the child who felt too much and learned to pretend. You lift the veils that were placed between you and the truth, not just by others, but by your own psyche, desperate to survive. The psyche, in its brilliance, builds mechanisms of safety. It erects defenses, personas, rationalizations. It buries the unbearable in the unconscious, hoping that what we do not see will not haunt us. But what is repressed is not erased. It is only made silent, and silence becomes suffering. The sensitive suffer precisely because they cannot silence what others can. They are too close to the unconscious, their dreams too vivid, their instincts too sharp, their bodies like antennae pick up the vibrations of invisible wars in rooms where no one else feels anything. This is the empath's torment, to feel pain that is not yours, but is somehow now within you, to carry a grief that cannot be named, to mourn things that never happened, not in this life, at least. But what if I told you this was your gift? Not in the romanticized, superficial way. The modern world packages sensitivity not as an excuse for codependence, not as a spiritual performance, but as a sacred faculty of the soul. The sensitive are the oracles of the unconscious. The body of the sensitive becomes the drum upon which collective pain beats its rhythm. And in that rhythm, a message, but that message must be deciphered. This is the inner work, the alchemy of sensitivity. To feel deeply is not enough. You must also understand what you feel, and this understanding comes not from logic but from symbolic sight. Symbols are the language of the soul, and your sensitivity is your translator. When you are around someone and you feel drained, do not merely blame them. Ask, what is my body saying? What archetype is being awakened? Am I in the presence of a vampire? Yes, but more importantly, why did I invite them in? For even the vampire must be welcomed. You see, the patterns we attract are never random. They are coded messages from the unconscious, and until the message is read, the pattern repeats again and again and again. The sensitive, by their very nature, are often magnetized to the wounded, and not because they are destined to heal them, but because they recognize them. Soul recognizes soul. Traum recognizes traum. And when the recognition is unconscious, it becomes reenactment. But when it is brought to awareness, it becomes release. The moment you ask yourself, why do I keep ending up in this kind of relationship, you have already stepped onto the path. Not the path of blame, but the path of retrieval. For the ones who hurt you the most are often reflections of the wound you have not yet dared to name. And this is where the armor becomes seductive. It is easier to protect than to feel, easier to guard than to grieve, easier to shut down than to sit in the ache. But every time you protect yourself from feeling, you also protect yourself from transformation. Because the heart, when it breaks open, becomes a crucible. You were never meant to be untouched. You were meant to be transfigured. This is the paradox of the sacred wound. It hurts, yes, but it also reveals, and in that revelation, you do not become less, you become more. The alchemist takes base metal and turns it into gold, but the process requires fire. You are in the fire, and yet you do not burn, because sensitivity, when embraced rather than fear, becomes intuition, becomes insight, becomes power. The sensitive who survives betrayal, not by hardening, but by deepening, becomes a sage. Not all sages wear robes. Some walk among us with quiet eyes and trembling hands. They do not reach, they feel, and in their feeling, we are reminded of what it means to be human. But the world does not reward this. It rewards efficiency, not empathy. It glorifies productivity, not presence. It sells numbness as enlightenment, but I tell you, feeling is not failure. It is freedom, the freedom to know when something is wrong, even if no one else sees it. The freedom to trust your dreams, even when they make no sense. The freedom to speak the truth, even when your voice shakes. And yes, it will cost you. To live without armor is to live exposed. But that exposure is where light enters. Not the artificial light of performance, the true light, the one that rises from within, after the darkness has done its work. Do you know the myth of the phoenix? Everyone speaks of its rise, but few sit with its death. The phoenix must burn not because it was weak, but because it was ready. You are ready. Ready to shed the false skins. Ready to stop apologizing for feeling. Ready to stand not as a victim of love, but as its channel. For love, true love does not need armor. It needs clarity, boundaries, yes, but not barriers. Discernment, yes, but not detachment. Love with wisdom is not weakness. It is a revolution. And this revolution begins within. It begins when you stop betraying yourself for comfort. When you stop choosing silence to preserve illusions. When you stop calling your intuition paranoia because others are not ready for your truth. The sensitive must become sovereign, not hard but whole. You do not need to become like them to survive them. You need only to become more of who you are. The parts of you you've hidden, the ones who cried too much, who dreamed too wildly, who loved too deeply, they are not your shame. They are your salvation. But they will not come back with force. They will not respond to anger. They are children. They are symbols. They are ancient. They need safety. They need ritual. They need your permission. So go to them. Go to the part of you that stopped speaking. Go to the memory where your light was first called too much. Go to the moment you learned to smile while breaking, and there do not fix, do not change, just witness. Witnessing is the lost art of healing. To be seen is to begin. And when you see yourself truly see, you will no longer tolerate the echo of your old pain disguised as love. You will no longer let them drink from your light without offering water in return. You will no longer shrink to be palatable, because you will know this love you carry, it is not ordinary. It is archetypal, it is ancient, it is holy, but you must learn to direct it, not scatter it, not prove it, not waste it on those who only know how to consume. And so you begin the return, not to who you were, but to who you've always been beneath the masks, beneath the wounds, beneath the performance. You begin to walk the path of the initiated, the one who feels and remains, the one who breaks and builds, the one who loves without armor, but with wisdom. And when you truly stand in the fire of your sensitivity, not as victim, but as vessel, the world begins to change. Not all at once, but in glances, in encounters, in the quiet revolutions that begin within. And that, my dear ones, that is how the sacred returns through you. The sacred does not return through noise. It returns through presence. And presence is what the sensitive carry in their bones, not just an awareness of their surroundings, but an awareness of what lies beneath them, the undercurrents, the whispers, the invisible threads that tie one soul to another. You have always felt this, haven't you? Even when others spoke in surface tones. You heard the tremble behind the laughter. You sensed the sadness wrapped in someone's pride. You knew when someone's "I'm fine" meant "I'm dying inside." And yet, for all this, knowing who truly saw you, that is the question that haunts the sensitive. Not just why did they hurt me, but why didn't anyone notice that I was hurting? And here, the second wounding occurs not the pain of the original experience, but the pain of invisibility. Because the sensitive do not just feel pain, they feel unseen. And to be unseen is to question your very existence. You begin to wonder, if no one responds to my depth, is it even real? But I tell you now, what you feel is not only real, it is essential. You were never meant to be validated by the surface. You were meant to be initiated by the depths. This initiation is not handed out in temples or conferred by priests. It happens in the silence of your own heart. It happens in the nights you could not sleep, when your soul ached with a longing no one could name. It happens in the mirrors you shattered, in the people who walked away, in the letters you never sent. The initiation happens when your heart breaks so wide that something ancient rushes in, and you realize, I was never meant to be like them. You see, many sensitive people try to become what they are not. They take workshops on boundaries. They chant affirmations to become strong. They mimic the emotionally unavailable as if stoicism was strength. But none of it fits, because it was never meant to. You are not here to become armored. You are here to become illuminated. But illumination requires shadow. You cannot become a bearer of light until you have sat in utter darkness, not just in the world, but in yourself, especially in yourself. And this is where the real fear lives, not in being hurt again, but in facing what you carry, because the sensitive do not only absorb others, they also carry within them the parts of the psyche that the collective disowns, the shadow, the unspoken, the unacceptable, the forgotten gods and goddesses of the inner world: jealousy, rage, lust, despair, divine power. All of it lives within the sensitive, in sharper relief. You feel not just joy, but ecstasy, not just grief, but annihilation, not just desire, but the burning ache of cosmic union. And these things the world is not comfortable with. And so it tells you, you are too much, but You are not too much. You are just living at full volume in a world that has chosen to whisper. And if you do not learn to make peace with this volume, it will overwhelm you. It will become anxiety. It will become fatigue. It will become mysterious illnesses, relational chaos, existential dread. Because what is not expressed in consciousness becomes fate, and your fate, beloved one, is to transmute, not to escape. To do this, you must reclaim the symbol, the dream, the image. What did you dream last night or last month when everything fell apart? Was it the wolf at the door? Was it a child lost in the forest? Was it an ocean pulling you under? These are not meaningless. These are messages from your deeper self, from the collective unconscious, from the archetypes that live through you. The sensitive must become dream walkers, because your dreams are where the armor falls away, where the soul speaks without interference, where the body sleeps and the truth rises. I once had a patient woman so attuned to others she could not breathe in crowds. She called herself broken. She told me her problem was that she loved too easily, trusted too fast. She had been used, discarded, forgotten. Her dreams were filled with water, rising water, sinking boats, rain in every room. And I asked her, what do you fear will happen if you stop trying to save everyone? She wept because she did not know who she would be without saving. This is a great trap of the sensitive, to equate value with usefulness, to believe that if you are not helping, healing, giving, you are nothing. But the soul is not a servant. It is a sovereign flame. You must begin to know yourself, not through how others receive you, but through how deeply you are rooted in the unseen. Who are you in the silence? Who are you when no one needs you? Who are you when there is nothing to fix? If that question terrifies you, good. It means you are close to the truth you buried when the world told you to become something else. Close to the moment you believed love had to be earned. Close to the fracture where you put on your first mask. And now, my dear one, it is time to take it off. Not all at once, not with force, but slowly, tenderly, like a ritual, like a prayer. You take off the mask when you say no, and don't explain. You take it off when you cry and do not apologize. You take it off when you express anger, not as destruction, but as truth. You take it off when you love not to be loved in return. But because it is your nature, and you will feel naked because you are, but this nakedness is not shameful. It is sacred. It is original. It is the state in which your soul entered this world, naked, unarmored, whole, and now reborn. But remember, rebirth is not the end. It is the beginning of walking as the sensitive sage one who feels and knows, one who does not abandon themselves for love, but invites love that honors the self. You are not a rescuer anymore. You are not a sponge. You are not the emotional landfill of those who refuse to do their work. You are a vessel, a mirror, a priestess, a prophet. And your sensitivity, it is not your curse, it is your calling. You are called not to escape this world, but to re-enchant it, not to armor yourself against its madness, but to bring meaning back into its madness. For you, the sensitive, are not here to be swallowed by the noise. You are here to remind others that silence still exists, not the silence of repression, but the holy hush of being. And yet, your path is not paved with peace. It is paved with paradox. You will feel too much. Even when you wish you could feel nothing, you will see what others are blind to and wish. At times, you could unsee it. You will hold truths so sharp, they cut you, and still you must speak them. But you were born to speak them, not because you are better, but because you remember what it felt like to be loved without needing to perform. You remember the wisdom of the womb, the pre-verbal trust that said, you are enough. Just as you are, you remember the taste of truth before it was twisted into doctrine. And now, the memory becomes your mission. But you must walk with care, for memory without mastery becomes martyrdom. You are not here to bleed forever for a world that feeds on your light. You are not here to offer yourself to the wolves in the hope that one day they'll thank you. No. You are here to become the wolf that remembers its soul. To howl not for attention, but for awakening. To claim space not through domination, but through presence. To love not as a sacrifice, but as a sovereign act of creation. You see, we have misunderstood what it means to be sensitive. We have mistaken it for meekness, for passivity, for retreat. But true sensitivity is not passive. It is alive, awake, elemental. It is the fire that burns quietly behind the eyes of the mystic. It is the earth that grounds the wildness of empathy. It is the water that flows beneath the surface of every encounter. It is the air that hears what has never been said aloud. You, sensitive soul, carry all the elements, but they have been scattered, pulled in every direction by every unmet need you tried to answer. You became water when they needed tears. You became fire when they demanded light. You became earth when they needed to stand. You became air when they forgot how to breathe. But now it is time to gather yourself. Call your elements home, not to abandon your giving, but to become conscious in your giving. Not to stop feeling, but to know what you are feeling and why. Not to harden, but to anchor. This is the difference between the wounded empath and the awakened sensitive. The wounded empath says, let me feel it all, so you don't have to. The awakened sensitive says, I feel it all and I choose what to carry. Choice, that is your sacred right. You have not had many choices in the past, have you? You didn't choose to be so porous. You didn't choose the betrayal. You didn't choose the abandonment. You didn't choose to be the emotional dumping ground. But now, you choose what you do with it. You choose how to hold your sensitivity as shame or a sacrament. So choose now, not with fear, but with reverence. You are not healing, because you are broken. You are healing because your soul refuses to remain fragmented. And your soul will keep calling in dreams, in fatigue, in mysterious tears, in that ache you feel when you're surrounded by people who don't speak your language, not the one on your tongue, but the one in your spirit. Do not ignore the ache. It is your compass. It is pointing you back to what matters, to those who see you without needing a backstory, to places where silence doesn't mean suppression, to moments where your body no longer braces itself just to be in the room. This is your holy ground, and your sensitivity will recognize it the moment you step into it. It may be subtle, a soft exhale, a loosening in the chest, a feeling of, I don't have to perform here. That is the sign, that is the symbol, that is the soul saying, yes, more of this, please. Follow it. Follow what softens you. Follow what returns you to yourself. And as you do, as you become more you than you've ever been, watch how your relationships change. Watch how your body heals. Watch how your dreams deepen. Watch how the things you used to chase begin to find you, not because you are striving, but because you are aligned. This is the great irony. When the sensitive finally stop trying to be loved and start becoming love, the whole world begins to shift. Not instantly, not easily, but undeniably, you stop needing to be chosen because you choose yourself. You stop begging to be heard because your silence now has weight. You stop leaking your light and begin to contain it, tend it, sanctify it. You become your own temple. And in that temple, there is no armor, only truth, only fire, only soul. And so I ask you, not as a teacher, but as a fellow walker of this path, can you bless your sensitivity even if it still hurts? Can you hold the ache and say, you belong here? Can you sit with your tenderness and not demand that it change? Because when you do, something ancient in you will awaken. Not a version of you that is harder, but one that is holier. And then, my dear sensitive one, you will finally understand you never needed armor. You needed remembrance. You needed to remember that your sensitivity is not your wound. It is your way home,